The Dave Aranda era in Waco couldn't have started out better, and this is a team that was constantly competing for Big 12 titles. Well, last year this team saw a very, very bad season, and it has a lot of people thinking that Dave Aranda could be on the hot seat. But can a good transfer portal class and a lot of other factors fix Baylor football and get them back into the postseason in 2024? You're about to find out what I think here in this video. What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today. I want to welcome you to my channel and welcome you back to prediction seasons, where I predict all 134 FBS level college football teams, which means I'm doing your favorite team. Hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you know when that video gets uploaded. I want to thank you so much for watching this video because it helps support my channel in more ways than you can even imagine. And if you want to continue to support what I do here on YouTube, please like, comment, share, watch my other videos. Again, subscribe. Literally anything you do to interact with the channel helps to support it. It does mean a lot to me. And with all that out of the way, let's dive on into Baylor football in 2024. How do we talk about it? Glad you asked. I'm going to tell you right now. We're going to take a deep dive into the team's offense, into the defense, and at the end of the video, we'll go through the Baylor football schedule and give it a game-by-game preview and prediction. A couple more things before we do start, because right over here are going to be the stats the team put up either offensively or defensively last season. And, of course, for your viewing pleasure, right below the team's logo, I have put the team's coaching staff. So with no further introduction, let's talk about Baylor football in 2024. This is an offense that had some good moments last year, but overall was inconsistent, and it couldn't really score the football as well as they would have liked to. Only 23 points per game, and while the passing numbers were solid, the team didn't really have a great rush game. They only rushed for 1,300 yards as a team last year, 3.3 yards per carry. That's something that has to improve in 2024, but it starts with quarterback play. What does the quarterback room look like for the Bears in 2024? Well, Blake Shapen and RJ Martinez are two guys that have entered the transfer portal. Blake Shapen is going over to Mississippi State, while RJ Martinez is going over to Texas State. Shapen last year, 2,188 yards, 13 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. Looked pretty good throughout the time that he did play. And Blake Shapen, well, while he's shown some inconsistencies at Baylor, for the most part, was a very good quarterback for this program in Waco, and Martinez only threw 24 passes last year. So you do get Sawyer Robinson back, who was that primary backup last year, and actually did play a lot behind Blake Shapen, 864 yards and 117 passing attempts, but he only had 2 touchdowns and threw 4 picks. So he had way fewer touchdowns. And look, that's to be expected when you throw less than the primary starter in Blake Shapen, but he had more picks than Blake Shapen in almost 170 less passing attempts. So that's definitely going to factor into this quarterback battle, but the guy that I think who ultimately is going to win it is a Toledo transfer by the name of DeQuan Finn, and I like him a lot. I've liked him since he started to gain this sort of great popularity. I think he's a really good quarterback. He's a dual-threat quarterback, and I believe he will be the Baylor Bears starter in 2024. I know there's technically a little bit of a quarterback battle going on, but DeQuan Finn last year saw a career year, throwing the football 2,657 yards, 22 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions. And last season, rushing the football, while it wasn't some career stats in this regard, still a very good rushing quarterback. 5,000, that would be crazy. 563 yards with 7 touchdowns. The prior 2 seasons in 2021 and 2022, he had 9 touchdowns. And this is a Toledo team that was competing for MAC championships, and mostly because, well, no, I shouldn't say mostly, but a part of the reason was DeQuan Finn. He's a really good dual threat quarterback, and for his final season of collegiate eligibility, he's coming over to Baylor. As long as he can keep that momentum trending forward in the passing game, his run game is going to be utilized really, really well, and is going to be paired nicely with a returning stable of running backs. You get everyone back in this running back room. No notable losses really that I could find. Dominic Richardson, Dawson Pendergrass, and Richard Reese, the 3 leading rushers of this team last year, all of them had over 300 yards and at least 1 touchdown. They will all be coming back. Now, Richardson was the leading rusher of those, only had 519 yards. Again, this was a rush game that did struggle last season, and overall was an offensive line that did struggle last season. We'll talk about the offensive line when we get there, but getting your entire stable of running backs back, really no matter who it is, no matter how talented you could perceive them to be, returning all that talent in that running back room is really going to help out DeQuan Finn. It's going to save his legs some, and look, high upside potential. Dominic Richardson can be good. Pendergrass can be good. Reese can be really good. So there's a lot of good talent in this running back room. Wide receiver room, you did lose a couple guys to the transfer portal. Armani Winfield is gone. as well as Jordan Neighbors. Now, both of these guys were kind of depth pieces last year, but Winfield did have 7 catches. Neighbors did have 8 catches. Neither of them, though, over 100 yards last season. So pretty much every major contributor in this wide receiver room is back, which again bodes well for DeQuan Finn and even Sawyer Robertson, who again I expect to get playing time this season. Monterey Baldwin, the leading receiver last year at 623 yards, 4 touchdowns. He's coming back. Ketron Jackson, Josh Cameron, Hal Presley, and Jonah Burton all come back, and you add on to that stable of wide receivers with some guys coming over through the transfer portal. You are getting Ashton Hawkins, who is a Texas State transfer, could play some big minutes over here, and Jamal Bell is coming over from Nevada. That again provides some more depth to this wide receiver room. And then the tight end room, you do lose Drake Dabney and Jake Roberts. So those are actually 2 really big losses out of this tight end room, as they were huge impacts to this passing game last season. Dabney was the 2nd leading receiver, while Roberts was the 4th leading receiver. My apologies, last season, both of them over 200 yards. And actually, Dabney had the most touchdown receptions out of anyone on the team with 5 of them. So you do lose some very notable pieces out of that tight end room. But coming back in this tight end room, you do have Kelsey Johnson, who is coming back. He had 11 catches last season, so he did get playing time last year. Matthew Klopfenstein, and I apologize if I mispronounced that last name, he is coming back as well. He only had 3 catches last year, and he'll see an increased role in 2024. And Michael Trigg is an Ole Miss transfer that I think is going to play really good minutes at tight end for this Baylor Bears program. On the offensive line, you do lose Clark Barrington to the NFL. I believe was that center. So you are losing kind of the focal point of that offensive line, while Elijah Ellis and George Maley, guys that were on the 2 deep on the offensive line for Baylor pretty much all of last season, are gone through the transfer portal. That means Gavin Byers, I will butcher this last name, so I apologize, Alvin Eboselli, Colton Price, Campbell Barrington, and Caden Siraki, and I butchered that last name as well. I know it. They all come back, as well as you get some guys over from the transfer portal. Kurt Daniker and Sidney Fugar, among many other offensive lineman transfers, are coming in. Those are just the 2 most notable ones to me. But again, you could see more guys come in through the portal, get some snaps on this offensive line. And that's the big key for me for Baylor offensively this season. The offensive line last year, again, didn't help this run game out much. Again, as I said earlier, it was a run game that only had 3.3 yards per carry, and they gave up 34 sacks last season. Now, DeQuan Finn is a guy that's going to be able to get out of the pocket a little bit better than Shapen, Robertson, and Martinez are able to, as shown by his rushing numbers. And just if you watch him, his athleticism is through the roof. I really like DeQuan Finn in this offensive system. I like the running back talent he has. I think adding those pieces in the transfer portal, in the pass catching room, is huge. And I think he'll have a good group of wide receivers, but how much does the offensive line help him out? I think that is the huge key for Baylor in 2024. You have a lot of returning starters, so the expectation is that it does improve, but we got to see it happen in order for this Baylor offense to take a step up from where they were a season ago. When you talk about the Baylor defense, well, it does lose its fair share of talent as well, mainly on the defensive line, but not a whole lot of names leave this defense. Again, Baylor's got a lot coming back in returning production, but the defense was not good last season. The secondary probably was the higher upside piece of this defense, because the defensive line gave up 184 rushing yards per game, darn near 185 rushing yards per game. They were atrocious on 3rd down, and well, that rush defense really isn't projected to get much better. Now, at least in terms of, again, that's not my opinion right now, at least in terms of, you see all the names that are leaving that defensive front 7. We'll go through all of them right now, because all of them you will see playing on Sundays. Gabe Hall is a fantastic edge rusher. My apologies. That'll be leaving this defense. He's sort of the edge you can kind of play him anywhere on that defensive line. I believe he got drafted, or I think signed, after the NFL draft as an edge rusher. 18 tackles, 2 sacks for him last season. Again, it's a defense that, while, again, it wasn't good at defending the rush, it wasn't real good at getting pressure to the quarterback either. Only 18 tackles. You lose 2 of them right there with Gabe Hall. Byron Vaughns is also going to be gone, so that's 3 more sacks that leave. And TJ Franklin had 3.5 sacks. So right there, you lose 8.5 sacks of production, if my math is correct, and you're going to lose even more when Mike Smith Jr. does leave this linebacker room. Now, he only had 1 sack last year, but that already is more than half of your sack production from last season gone, all of it to the NFL, and all of them were very good players. Again, Mike Smith leaving out of that linebacker room. So what does the defensive front seven look like for Baylor then in 2024? Well, you still have a lot of good talent. Your leading tackler among defensive linemen in Cooper Lands, again, only had 33 tackles and yet was the fifth leading tackler on this team. He had a sack last year. He's coming back. Garmin Randolph, Traven Mai, and I butchered that last name. I apologize. Brendan Bett. And then you get a lot of guys from the portal that will help this pass rush. Steve Linton's coming over from Texas Tech, and he is a very, very good player. Tonga Lolohea is coming in, as well as Jaquez Evans. And all of those guys are going to end up providing a huge boost to this pass rush, especially Steve Linton. That is the notable transfer on the defensive line. Matt Jones, who was the leading tackler for the team last year, and again, had 3 sacks. Well, not against, first time you're hearing me say it, but he was right up there for the team lead in sacks. Again, Franklin led it with 3.5. Vaughns was very close second with 3. Jones also had 3 sacks last year. And again, getting your lead tackler back on any defense is huge. Brooks Miller, Josh White, Jeremy Evans also come back. And more transfers. Keaton Thomas and Ra-Ra Dillsworth enter through the portal to boost up the depth in this linebacker room. You don't really lose a whole ton out of your secondary. You do lose a guy due to graduation, though, in Bryson Jackson. He had 24 tackles, 1 sack, and 2 passes defended last year out of the safety position. And Alfonso Allen is gone through the transfer portal. More of a depth piece than anything, but did have double-digit tackles a season ago for this Baylor Bear defense. So what do you return in your defensive back room? Well, not a whole lot of notable transfers coming into this room. You do get Kendrick Simpson, however, coming over. I'll get that program here one second, but he is coming in to play safety for this team. You do get him coming over from Western Kentucky, and there are some other transfers coming in. That's just the one that I feel like is going to get the most playing time because Lorando Johnson comes into the cornerback room from Arkansas, and Cameron Jenkins comes over from UNLV. But in your cornerback room, Cade Jenkins, Chateau Reed, Tevin Williams, and Isaiah Dunson all return, while Devin Bobby, Devin Lemire, Carl Williams, DJ Coleman, and Corey Gordon all come back to the safety room. So you do get a lot of returning talent in this defensive back room. When you go through some of the leaders here, Jenkins last season out of the cornerback room was one of your better defensive backs last season. Only 3 pass defended, but did lead the team with 3 picks. Bobby did have 6 passes defended. That led the team last season. Again, a team that only had 7 interceptions last year. You're looking for pretty much everyone on this defense to take a step up. And kickers are people too. We have to show them some love. Palmer Williams, my apologies, back to do the punting duties, and Isaiah Hankins will be that primary place kicker in 2024. The defense has to see improvement in 2024, and with a former defensive coordinator in Dave Aranda leaving this team, it was really disappointing how this defense performed last season. It lost a lot of talent up front, which is exactly where you want to get better now. Now, they do have a lot of talent coming back. Again, getting your leading tackler back in Matt Jones is huge. Getting Steve Linton coming over from the portal to pair with all the talent they already have on that defensive line coming back is huge. And there are a couple other guys that I didn't mention that could see significant playing time defensively for Baylor. But this is the side of the ball. Yes, the offensive line is a concern for this Baylor Bears team, but the defensive side of the ball has to take a massive leap forward because with this football schedule, well, Baylor's going to have a lot of tough games here. Hey, any game at home is going to be underlined. Well, any game on the road is in italics. That's that slanted text. Any game you see in green is a game that I think the Bears are going to win quite easily. Any game in yellow will be a close competitive game, but I still think Baylor's going to be able to win. And then any game in red is going to prove to be a loss for this Baylor Bear program. And we will start out predictions with an FCS level program here. Baylor's going to have to go up against Tarleton State, and this should be a win for the Baylor Bears. Get Daquan Finn's feet wet in this system, move a couple pieces around on defense, see how these transfers all fit in before you have to go on the road and play Utah. Now, even though Utah is joining the Big 12 this year, this is not a Big 12 conference game. So this game does not count towards BYU's conference record, and that's a good thing because I think Utah is going to be really, really good here in 2024. You have Cam Rising coming back. You have Brant Keithy coming back. We know the style of defense that Kyle Whittingham's group plays. That's my favorite to win the Big 12 conference, and I am in love with this Utah team, and I love Kyle Whittingham as a head coach there as well. But Cam Rising is the best group of wide receivers he's had at Utah, at least in my opinion, and this is going to be a really good defense in 2024. I don't see Baylor getting by Utah. Yes, this is a close one last season, but it was at home in Waco. Utah has Cam Rising back, and I think that Baylor will lose that road game against the Utah Utes. They can't sleep on the Air Force Falcons here because, yes, Air Force, as we talked about in my Air Force video, literally loses everybody from last year. Zach Larrier at quarterback is gone. Their leading rushers from last year gone. A lot of defensive pieces are gone, including a phenomenal linebacker slash edge rusher in Bo Richter, along with a ton of other talent. They only returned 5 starters to that team. And well, they're going to have a little bit, not necessarily a little bit of a game plan shift, but they do have more of a passing quarterback than they've had in the past in John Boucher and a lot of other really nice talent. And that's a defense that's still going to play hard and still going to be really good. I think, though, Dave Aranda is going to be coaching out of his mind this season. And I do think that Baylor is going to be able to win this game. Now, again, you can't sleep on the Air Force Falcons, but this is a game that I do think the Baylor Bears should be able to win as they improve to 2-1 this college football season. All right, then you got to go on the road in Boulder and play the Colorado Buffaloes. Now, this game, very interesting because I could see this one swinging either way. Colorado's trying to build through the transfer portal again, which is exactly what Deion Sanders is trying to do with this program. He's building through the portal, but look, Colorado's got a lot of nice pieces there, and they have upgraded in a lot of positions. Yes, a lot of solid talent leaves in that running back room. Still might be a little bit of a question mark. You did get Dallin Hayden coming in, a player that personally I have loved, coming over from Ohio State, as well as some other pretty talented players coming in. You lose Cormani McClain, but you still got 2 names that are going to be really good pieces, and they're some of the best players in college football. Shedeur Sanders and the dual-way player in Travis Hunter. I know Shiloh Sanders coming back there as well. Colorado still got a lot of nice pieces. They will be more competitive than they were last season, and I think especially with Baylor's defensive struggle, they're going to struggle to slow down Travis Hunter. They're going to struggle to slow down Shedeur Sanders, and I think Colorado going to pick up a win against the Baylor Bears, and that as Baylor drops to 2-2. But they get to come back home and play the BYU Cougars, a game that I have as a win. Jake Retzlaff taking over at quarterback for that team, but BYU's got their fair share of questions this season as well. They do lose a lot of talent both offensively and defensively, and again, Baylor's going to be a better team than they were last season, guys. That defense should take a step at least in the right direction, even though there still are some concerns and question marks. How do the transfers fit in? How do you adjust to losing 3 defensive line pieces to the NFL, et cetera, et cetera. But Waco, very fun place to play. Those fans get rowdy, and I think Baylor's going to pick up a win here to get back above 500. So, hey, if you keep this cycle going, Baylor makes a bowl game, but the schedule does get tougher from here. You have to go on the road to play the Iowa State Cyclones, and that's a team that I really like this season out of the Big 12 ranks. They return a lot of young talent, including Becht at quarterback. Rocco Becht is coming back. Some really good pieces on defense come back. Some young, some very experienced veterans, such as Bo Frailer there at safety. And Iowa State's going to be a team to watch in the Big 12 Conference this year, especially that one being in Ames. I like the Cyclones to get that one done. Then you get your first bye week of the year before you have to go on the road to play Steve Linton's former team in Texas Tech. And I spoiled my prediction a little earlier than I wanted to, but that's okay. We'll roll with it. I do think Baylor loses to the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Texas Tech has got a lot of really nice pieces coming in through the transfer portal, and I do really like Joey McGuire as head coach, and Texas Tech is going to be a solid team this season. Don't sleep on the Red Raiders in the Big 12 Conference either. Last year was their year to sort of shine, and they kind of fell down to earth a little bit, at least compared to relative expectations that people had to them before the season starts. This is exactly the year where Texas Tech could explode. Another year of Zach Kitley. The offense should be more explosive this year. Baylor's defense will struggle to slow it down on the road, and that's a loss for the Baylor Bears. I also think they lose to the Oklahoma State Cowboys. Now, the whole Ollie Gordon situation that is sort of developing has thrown a wrench into Oklahoma State this season, because who knows what happens with Ollie Gordon. Usually it's like a 1 or 2 game suspension for the things that Ollie Gordon has gotten in trouble with DUI and everything like that. But again, we will see the extent that that happens. But nonetheless, Oklahoma State's still going to have a really good defense. They got a good piece at quarterback in Alan Bowman, as long as he can figure out the touchdown to interception ratio. And Oklahoma State, well, you never count out Mike Gundy. So I think Oklahoma State's still going to be solid with or without Ollie Gordon this season. That'll be a loss for the Baylor Bears. However, I do think they beat TCU, and I understand that TCU's had a pretty good record against Baylor here, but TCU is a team that I have a lot of question marks about here as well. They lose a lot of pieces offensively. They lose a lot of pieces defensively. Granted, some good pieces coming through the portal, but this one at home, I think you split that Oklahoma State and TCU home and home, and I do think that Baylor comes out of that with at least 1 win. Okay, so you got to win 2 games here at the end of the season to make a bowl game. That's going to be a really tough ask, especially when you have West Virginia coming up after your second bye week of the year. That's a loss for me. Garrett Green and Neil Brown are going to be a really good team this season. And while I still have some questions about how certain positions are going to gel for West Virginia, overall, I really like that Mountaineer team. I think they will beat Baylor in week 12. You got to go on the road to play Houston. And look, this is a toss up for me because I like the Willie Fritz hire and I like him as a head coach, but I think he needs time to get his guys in there, get in his system. And I think that'll be a win for the Baylor Bears. So, okay, ride or die time. You need a win against the Kansas Jayhawks, and I don't think you get it. Again, with as much questions I have about this Baylor defense, I think Jalen Daniels, Devin Neal, and this Kansas offense are going to explode. The Kansas defense will do what it needs to do to slow down DeQuan Finn, and that's a defensive side that continues to improve. Kansas beats Baylor, which leads the Bears to 5-7. Can this team make a bowl game? Yes, absolutely. There are so many more winnable games again. You could go on the road and beat Texas Tech. You could beat Kansas at home. You could beat Colorado on the road. Who knows what Oklahoma State's going to look like? That could be a win for you guys, but it is a hard schedule, and I got a lot of questions defensively about Baylor, which leads me to 5-7. But I want to know what you guys think in the comment section down below, and as always, remember to play hard but tailgate harder. The Indiana Hoosiers are coming up next. Goodbye.